Right. How's everyone doing? Good afternoon. We'll get ready to start. Just a moment. Hope everyone's doing great on this beautiful Monday afternoon. It is 12:30. Thanks for tuning in to REI 101.
What are we listening to?
We're just listening to some lo-fi hip hop by a band called Orange Sofa. You like it?
Yeah.
Yeah, lo-fi Orange Sofa. They used to be Orange Sofa is they used to be like metal guys that played like metal jazz. They were called a band called Chon, and now they play just like the chillest lo-fi hip hop that you can imagine. So, all right. Well, welcome to REI 101. This probably could have been our very first episode of the show, REI 101. So, what we be talking about today is probably one of the most absolutely important uh, things when it comes to being successful as a real estate professional, as a real estate investor. Anyone that is making money, that is doing good deals, that is being consistently doing well in this space. Today's topic this is the content that they have. Um, so we got Alberto. How are you doing, Albert?
Hey man, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
Cool. I just
So
had a little bit of housekeeping here because I was using the wrong link. Sorry about that, buddy.
there you go. There you go. So I've got a whole stack of books on my desk. We're going to talk about a lot of books. Albert, one of the things that Albert and I have in common, and I know Richard's on here, and we have, you got to read a lot. What book are you reading right now at the moment?
Me, I'm reading Arnold Schwarzenegger's new book, Seven Rules of Being Useful. It's pretty
Oh,
good.
really?
Yeah, it's really good.
Pretty good?
Yeah, it's
It,
a really fast read too, so that's why I like it.
Very good. Cool. Well, let me know how it goes. Maybe I can borrow it from you when you're done.
Yeah, I will. You'll probably finish it in a couple of days. It's pretty good. I like his story
Maybe.
though. But I'm
I don't
reading
read
that
as fast.
one. I'm
I
reading
don't read as fast as
Meditations
Richard.
and I'm reading the Daily Stoic. So
I got. Do you have this one, the Daily Stoic Journal by
I
Ryan
don't have
Holiday?
that one.
This
No.
is cool. I actually got this. He has a store in Bastrop. So whenever I'm driving through Texas, I try to stop in his store. He has a lot of good books. I'm reading Stillness is the Key. This is awesome. This is one of his books as well. So I'm reading that every morning. Last week we talked about sourcing deals. Any big wins? Did anybody find any amazing deals? Did anybody look? You can take yourself off mute. By the way, I am giving a copy of the Millionaire Real Estate Investor today, so you got to tune in to win. You get points if you got to participate. You got to chat or come off mute and talk. But who looked at some deals this week?
I did.
You did? What did
Yeah.
you see?
I looked at a fourplex near U of H. It's in pretty, I mean, it's a fixer-upper, of course. We're just looking for things that we can add value to. And just
Is
did
it cash flowing?
just what?
Is it cash flowing?
Well, right now it's empty, so like
Okay.
it's not habitable. It needs work. So I guess the challenge is getting them down to where we need to be. And so
Yeah.
Julia's going to work on that with building rapport with the agent. It's listed on the MLS, but I think we can get it for the price that we're trying to get it for. I'm estimating the rehab ARV is probably around close to 570, 600,000. And it'll definitely cash flow after that because it's like 5 minutes from U of H. It's zero point 0.7 miles from the light rail. Perfect for midterm rentals, anything 30 days, 30 days or longer, but under a year. So
Yeah.
and they're all like one bedroom or studio apartments. So it's
What would
fourplex.
your what would your exit strategy be on that?
It'll be like midterm rentals. We could get about 16 to 1800 dollars per unit there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long would do you think you foresee yourself holding onto an asset like that?
Well, honestly, just there's not like a definitive, we don't look at it a definitive exit plan on selling the property. We would just hold on to it until we either needed to tap into the equity or trade up or something like that. So,
Okay. Very good. Very good. Well,
and
best
then
of luck.
we close on a piece of land, a vacant lot. We close on that this Wednesday. And
Congratulations.
so, yeah, we'll start with our engaging our architect and the engineer probably Thursday or Friday. Once the recorded deed is at the county clerks, we're going to get
Nice.
started on building a duplex.
Very good. Very good. We're about to close. I have a buyer closing on an RV park out in Dayton. That the financing on that was crazy. Part SBA, part conventional. Now the SBA is just dragging. They're pretty slow. I don't know if anybody has experience working with a small business administration on financing,
Oh,
but live, you're nodding your head. Yes, I see you. Yeah, they can be quite complicated, quite messy, but I talked to somebody today. He was like, I want to buy as many short-term vacation rentals in Galveston as possible. I'm like, you're kidding me. It's like everybody's getting out of that space. So you and I need to become best friends. So you
But
so
can buy them all. So I'll send them all of your properties, Albert.
let Liv has something to say.
Yeah.
oh yeah, hi. So I found a duplex in Galveston for 189 and I like where it is, like it's in a good part of town. And I like the fact that one of the sides is already being rented out.
There you go.
And so I actually called on it, but unfortunately she had just gotten a deal, like not a deal, she had an offer that day. Um, so, I like what she said was that it's in good condition and that that the current renter knows that he's had too good of a rent for a while, so he's willing to go for a rent
Come.
increase. So I
There you go.
like the price, I like the location, I liked the fact that it was already rentable, but
Mhm.
unfortunately, like I said, there was already an offer made, so that's kind of where it stopped.
Well, that's good, but it sounds like you're getting some things in motion and that, you just got to keep doing that every day. Keep looking at deals. You find something that's interesting, send it to your agent to run numbers on it. So
Yeah. But like, I didn't want to send it to you because she said he it already had an offer, so that's just wasting your time, isn't it? Like, it had been
no,
on the market
because
54 days already.
they haven't executed the offer, and it's always good to make. I mean, you never know. We've had buyers buy deals that were under contract and came back, or we put in a backup offer, and then the first offer falls through, and
Okay.
so there's
So
always ways to make things happen.
yeah, so in that case though, like, how do we know if like even financially it would even be in the running for us? Like like how, like I don't know. I understand the finding a deal, but then when you look at like how we just bought a house in our case like a year and a few months ago, we're at the very beginning of the mortgage. Like we don't have a lot of equity in that property yet. At that point, how do we know financially if it's even in the running for us?
Well, so that's a great question, but I would change the question.
Okay.
The question I would ask is, what would that number need to be in order to work? I would start with that.
Okay.
So to me, we looked at that deal in Pearland 2 weeks ago, and I went out there and you know, I I felt like it needed to be like between 300 and 310 in order to work, and it just wasn't a strong enough offer. Somebody else offered 330, and that's okay. But the path is in the math, and when it comes to real estate investing, especially, it all becomes a numbers game. So number one, I would say you decide what number makes sense for you, and then wash, rinse, repeat. And then tomorrow, find another deal, run the number. And then the day after that, find another. And if you're doing, 4 or 5 of those a week, you'll eventually hit something. It's not going to happen right away.
But so for like down payments and stuff, like how would I know? I'm sure that there's some kind of factors that are going to determine whether or not like it's even realistic for us or not. And I would assume
Yeah,
down payment is part of that.
yeah. So what we can talk about in a couple of weeks, we're going to do deal analysis every first Monday.
Okay.
And so what we can do, and we'll make a note, Albert. What we can do is we can take a property and we can amortize it. We can figure out what your mortgage payments are going to be, estimate what
Okay.
the expenses are going to be, and
Okay.
that's how we can come up with the cash flow.
Okay.
And then once we can figure out what the net profit or the cash on cash return, the net profit is, then we can use your down payment to determine what the cash on cash return is.
Okay. I guess last question. In that kind of a case where it's going to be a rental property, are they more lenient with down payments in terms of that at all? Or you always have to have a
No,
percentage of
no,
the,
typically it's going to be higher. We're seeing a lot of like for single family homes or 1 to 4 like a fourplex, triplex, duplex. Right now, I'm seeing like 25 to 35% down right
okay.
now.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah. You may be able to get some private like a private loan. You may be able to partner with somebody that has more of the cash to do
Okay.
that. So if you do find a killer deal and you're not quite at the position to move on it,
Yeah.
share it with others because other people may be able to help you with that.
Okay. Awesome.
If
Thank
it,
you.
yeah, absolutely. No, those are great questions. And yeah, we had such a good response from when we analyzed that deal the first week in May. We're going to keep doing that every first Monday.
Okay. Sounds good.
So yeah, last week we talked about finding sourcing deals. So good question. Good job, Liz. Albert's finding some good deals. So keep up with it. I met with Richard yesterday. He's finding good deals. So we're gonna talk about mindset, and this is critical. This is one of my favorite books right here. I know Albert and I we spent some time on the phone just talking about different books. But first thing I want to encourage you to do is get in the habit of reading.
Yeah.
That's one characteristic of every high level successful investor is their reading. They're constantly feeding their mind and focusing on their mindset.
Yeah.
Albert, did you have anything to say to add to that?
Just like getting some books out. Some of the books that I've read recently. Never Split the
Yeah,
Difference, Traction, The Millionaire Next Door. Never Split the
yeah.
Difference is a really good book.
I've read Never Split the Difference like 2 or 3 times
I think I've
already.
read it. I've read it 1.5 times because I keep going back to it in certain parts of the book to like when I'm dealing with a certain personality, I'll go to that part in the book to figure out like how, a refresher on how to negotiate with someone like that. It's a
I
really
like
good.
to I like to like kind of keep like some different subcategories in mind. So when you say like never split the difference, like there is a category that I constantly read when it comes to just communicating and negotiating. Never split the difference is number one when it comes to really improving my communication and negotiating skills.
Mhm.
Another one I would put in that category by far is Exactly What to Say by Phil M. Jones. Incredible book. Um, and then the third one I would put in communication is Emotional Intelligence 2.0. That's an incredibly powerful book. You can practice those skills on your spouse and on
I
your
think I've read that
children.
one too. I think I've read that one.
Yeah, yeah. Emotional Intelligence 2.0, really good for communicating. The first category I would start with would be just general mindset. So I think like everybody has read Rich Dad Poor Dad
Yeah.
would definitely be on that list. I really like, um, uh, by the way, Rich Dad Poor Dad has so many great takeaways. Really thinking about the difference between assets and liabilities. I know you've read that book. I know a lot of people are reading that book right there. Um, did you have anything else on that?
Yeah, I mean, the follow-up book, which a lot of people may not know, is called The Cash Flow Quadrant. So
Yeah.
that's the other one by Robert Kiyosaki that is, I think, just as good as Rich Dad Poor Dad. Like reading those back to back really changes how you look at money, how you look at working a 9 to 5 job, how you approach education, college education, all of these things, and investing and all of these things, right? It's when you're kind of brought up with this traditional upbringing of you go to school, you graduate from college, and I'm sorry, yeah, you go
Hmm.
to high school, you graduate from college, you get a degree, you get a job, you work for a corporation, you have a 401k, and all of these things work out for you. And when you're 65, you have this money and you retire, right?
Yeah,
Rich Dad Poor Dad and Cash Flow Quadrant just really kind of turns that upside down, right?
I love it.
There's definitely a
Did you
different
ever
way to
play
look
the
at it.
board game, Cash?
I never played it, no, but I heard
Yeah,
about it.
he came up with the board game.
Yeah,
I would recommend a lot of the Stoic philosophy. This really helps with mindset. This is Meditations by Marcus Aurelius.
yeah.
This is not an easy read. This is You can just nibble on this little bite-sized pieces at a time. Uh, uh, the Daily Stoic Journal, I think is really good. Another book that I read this year that is incredibly powerful, Gap in the
The Gap in
Gain
the Game, yeah.
by
That's part of a 3 book series. That one's good too.
yeah. I haven't read the other ones, but the Gap in the Gain
Yeah.
was very, very good.
I think the other
And then
ones are Who Not How and 80% is easier than 20%.
yeah,
Oh,
the
sorry,
Pareto principle.
20% is something like that. Yeah, I can't remember. Or I'm sorry, no. 10% is easier than 2% or something like that.
I know the 80/20 rule. I haven't read the
Nah, yeah, it's another one by Benjamin Hart. I think his name is Ben Hardy. I can't remember. Anyways, let's go. Keep going.
Okay, moving on. Another one on mindset that I think is real powerful is the one thing. The one thing was really good for me because it really helped me focus on just develop one habit at a time, and you do that for 66 days, and then it talks about habit stacking, which is also discussed in another. This is one of my top. Everybody that is wanting to get into reading books like this, you need to read Atomic Habits.
Hmm.
Atomic Habits is
James Clear.
incredibly powerful. So as far as mindsets, those are all good. Ryan Holiday, he wrote The Obstacle is the Way, Courage is Calling. Um, One more that I think is has been really powerful for me and other people is a book by Brianna Wiest called The Mountain Is You. This one really helped me get out of get better at getting out of my way and just understanding where um, I guess a lot of the challenges and a lot of the problems that I face in life, I realized that I had a lot more to do with it than I realized. So The Mountain is You. So those are all incredibly good books. And then and then after that, I would also say like nuts and bolts. Like most of the books that we just mentioned probably won't tell you how, like step by step, how to get to where you're going. But I think you have to continue to focus on like mindset books, philosophy. And I have people in my family, they use the term self-help. I, I kind of get like a shiver down my spine because I know what they're thinking that there's some guru and that. But what I try to tell people is like this is not. I want to say self-help because I'm pretty driven and pretty motivated. But like this is self-improvement. And so
Mhm.
until I feel like I've mastered perfectionism, which will never come, I'm going to continually try to be a better husband. I'm going to do what I can to be a better dad, a better business leader, better manager of my finances, which is the fourth category I would bring up is financial management. We talked about this a lot. What books do you like when in regards to like just finances and investing?
I know I read the financial independence books by Dave Ramsey back in
Yeah.
2019, 2020, and that was right around the time we got started with real estate. Um, there's another book that I never got finished reading. It's called Your Money or Your Life, and
Hmm.
it talked about investing as well. when I started thinking about real estate, I really kind of dove into this FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early
Yeah.
movement. And it talks about like managing your spending, right? Getting out of debt or not accumulating any debt. Um, Spending like your money on experiences, right? Over things,
Yeah.
and really just squeezing everything out of life that you can.
Yeah.
Um, and it kind of goes back to kind of this Robert Kiyosaki thing, right? Rich Dad, Poor Dad is investing aggressively and saving
Yeah.
aggressively
Yeah.
to where people are retiring, in some of these people are retiring in their 30s, and really
Right.
being able to kind of live life on their terms, right? So, but
There,
those are some
yeah,
of the books.
there's a clear path to hitting that goal
Yeah.
easily. This one was really good. I don't know, I can't get the blur to come off. I'll unblur my screen, but this is The Little Book of Common Sense Investing by John C. Bogle.
hmm
Um, that was very powerful. Dave Ramsey wrote The Total Money Makeover.
That's it. Yeah, that's the one.
That completely changed my life at that time. Got out of debt, building, started investing. Chris Hogan, Retire Inspired. I try to read that every like 2 years or something. I think that's it that I can think of off the top of my head as far
If
as
you like spreadsheets and really digging deep into your spending habits and budgeting and things like that, then this book, Your Money or Your Life, that one I just mentioned is a pretty good book. It gets pretty in the weeds,
yeah.
really on identifying where all of your money's going and how to allocate that appropriately. It's a good book though. It's pretty good.
I want to go back to mindset. One more really like this is kind of my mantra. I forgot to mention this book is The Go Giver
hmm
by Bob Berg and John David Mann.
Yeah.
That book has been so powerful for me. That's really the kind of person that I strive to be. I mean, that's one of the reasons why we have this call and we do our happy hours because one of the things, one of the things that gives me joy is waking up in the morning and know that Albert and Richard are friends and that I had something to do with that. That's a pretty big deal for me. So reading, mindset, finances. We talked about financially, and I want to say this about real estate investors. Um, it's important as an investor of any type of asset, whether it be real estate or anything else, to really have your personal finances dialed in. Now, it's not going to be perfect, of course, but we do meet investors that are really not in a good position to invest, and
Mhm.
it's just because of their personal finances can keep them from doing so many big things. So I would definitely get inspired. Uh, Not only did I read Money Makeover, but I took the Financial Peace University with Dave Ramsey several times, and I found out, I got better. You know, it took me a while. I wasn't excellent at it, when I became an adult. It was my 30s when I got better at it, and I'm still getting better at it. So yeah, lots more emotional intelligence 2.0. I mentioned that. One more. I keep coming up to these mindsets. The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod was very powerful. Did you read that one?
I've never read that one though. Mhm.
That's the book that has the SAVERS acronym. These are the six most powerful things you can do in the morning to have an incredible miracle morning. They're, having the silence and the gratitude, the writing, the exercise. So those are very good. So I can keep going on and on. We I read a lot, so very
Yeah,
good
I read a
stuff.
lot too.
So what books do you have? Leave it in the chat. What are some reads that you want to share with everybody else that have been
Yeah, I
powerful
think
for
that's a
you?
good idea. Like put in the chat like
Yeah.
any of your current books that you've read or read recently that had an impact on you. I mean, I've gotten mindset information just kind of I like reading biographies,
Hmm.
about past presidents. Like I've read a lot on like the Civil War and the the Vietnam War and World War One and World War Two, and just reading stories about these generals and these battles and these, these people that lived that came before us, and just kind of cherry picking some of those things, right, to help me with mindset and challenges along the way. But
You have you have to give me.
it's not always a book about mindset, but you can still get some things out of those books too.
That's what I like about a lot of the Ryan Holiday stuff is he will mention a lot about like great leaders of past. There was a chapter in this book about Winston Churchill, like the things that he accomplished with the obstacles that he was facing far surpasses anything that I've ever had to deal with. And I think I agree with you by reading about other people and how they've overcome and how they led and in the situation they led in, it makes what we're doing look like just a walk in the park, right?
Yeah.
So I want to hit the 7 ways. This is straight from the the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. The 7 ways a millionaire real estate investor thinks. Liv mentions the law of success. Yes, Napoleon Hill and daily 365 signs of mind. I haven't heard that. Or Ernest Holmes. Okay, something to add to my list. Liv just gave us some homework. Atomic Habits. Vita, thanks for being on the call. Yes, an easy and proven way to build good habits and break bad ones by James Clear. That's a big one. That's everybody needs to read that. I would say at least once a year. That's a reread.
Atomic Habits.
Put that on a rotation. So number one of the 7 ways a millionaire real estate thinks. Think powered by a big why. Think powered by a big why, right? Why purpose driven investors outperform financially driven ones is because they have purpose. They're driven by their purpose.
Yeah.
They're,
I mean,
they're
you've heard that saying, right? It's not the destination, it's the journey. It sounds so cliche, but that kind of fits in here. If your
yeah.
destination is to maybe some part of your destination is being a millionaire, right? Having $1 million like net worth. I mean, that could be a destination. For most successful people that are successful for a very long time, for their entire lives, that's more like a waypoint, right? Yeah,
Right.
cool. It's there. There's a sign on the side of the road that says now entering, right, this
Hmm.
area, this phase, but then you move on and you continue to grow. But having a big why, a lot of us, at least the people that I come in contact with or that are within my circle, they're family oriented, and they're looking for ways to build a legacy for their
Yeah.
family. They're not chasing the big car or the big house, or the big bank account. They're more about like really achieving this financial freedom, and it
Hmm.
looks different to a lot of people, but I think in a lot of ways it looks the same. And
Yeah.
it's that true freedom of being able to do what you want, whenever you want, with whoever you want, wherever you want,
Yeah.
without having to ask for a day off and things like that, right? So when you have a big why like that, the reason why that's so important is because whenever you experience difficulties, and you're going to experience difficulties and discomfort on your journey,
Yeah.
your entrepreneurial journey, that big why, it keeps you going, you
Yeah.
know?
It
Yeah.
keeps your perspective maintained.
Hmm.
And it's not about the money either, because the money is only good for the good that it can do.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Number two, think big goals, big models, and big habits. Why scale matters and how consistent habits lead to compounding results.
Oh, yeah. So much to unpack there.
So we talked about when you start with the big why, start with your big purpose. And then what we coach our agents and our investors to do is to break it down. If I want to do this in 5 years, what has to happen in the first year? What do I need to do every month in order to get to that point? Break it down to my weekly. There's a tool that I use called the 411 that's on our YouTube channel. You can go back and look at it. But it's just a way of setting your goals, putting your goals on paper, which is like your chances of reaching your goals increases by 70% when you actually just put them down on paper. Put your goals down on paper. And then you back it down to monthly goals, to weekly goals, and then your schedule. This is the critical thing. Your schedule is going to reflect whether or not you're going to hit those goals. Your schedule is a reflection of your big why in some ways. And then we said you then you have to detach yourself from the outcome and fall in love with the process. That's what you mentioned. You become grateful for that journey, for that process. And we actually, once you get into it, you actually, to me, you find more value in the journey than in the destination, just like you said.
Right. I love what you said there, is a lot of us kind of we put ourselves in a small box,
Hmm.
right? And that's a metaphor for that. Like that's our comfort zone. And we put ourselves there. We feel comfortable there. We want to operate there. But everything that is going to make us grow and make us achieve and grow our business is outside of that box, right? Is outside of our comfort zone. And I think thinking big. So this book I'm reading, this Arnold Schwarzenegger book I'm reading. I mean, remember
Hmm.
this guy came from Austria, in the 60s and 70s, could barely speak English, became this amazing, bodybuilder, right? Won 7 or 9 Mr. Olympia championships in a row, became this big mega actor, right? I
Hmm.
mean,
Hmm.
he was a Terminator, like all of these things, became the governor of California. Like, and you look back where he started, and you can't like start there and go through all those things if you have a small vision,
That's right.
if you're just working within the small box. So dream big, and as you mentioned, Austin, have a plan, right?
That's
You
right.
can work backwards from that big dream and figure out all the way down to what do I need to do every single day that's going to get me closer and closer and closer to that big dream, you
I
know?
think in his documentary on Netflix, like he talked about like he knew exactly what it would look like. He knew what it would feel like to reach Mr. Olympiad, and he was crystal clear on the
Mhm.
process it would take and how many hours a day it would take. Like
Yes.
he
He fell
yeah,
in
there
love
was
with
no
that journey.
question. Yeah, there was no question in his mind what was going to happen on the way to get into that point. So he knew
Yeah.
exactly. Number three, think money matters. Think money matters. Don't just make money. Learn to keep it, grow it, learn to multiply it. So this goes back to a lot of the books that we mentioned, right? This goes back to really paying yourself first. It's a cliche, but it's still critically,
They write
it's
books
it's
about it.
yeah. What book you were mentioning, you know, it might have been Richard that was mentioning it yesterday. Um, like a cup of coffee at Starbucks, that $5 is $5 that you're spending on a cup of coffee. But how much, what are you not, what are you missing out on in 10 or 50 years, down the road? How much is that cup of coffee actually worth, like in 5 years or in 25 years, when you amortize it into,
Right.
an investment that you could have bought?
Right. I think too, like, so one of the things too, as far as like keeping it, growing it, and multiplying it, especially as a small business owner, when you're just getting started, you're wearing all the hats, right? You're the marketing person, you're the CPA, you're the bookkeeper, you are the operations man, you're doing everything. And as you continue to grow, you hire these people to kind of take these processes for you, and now you can focus on more higher paying hourly things to build your
Yeah,
business. But
very good.
you can overgrow your business to where you're only keeping 5 to 10% of all of your profit because you've got a lot of fat everywhere, right? So trimming that, so learning how to grow that and keep that money as you bring it in. Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah. There was another book I read, and it was The Three Traders. Most of us trade our time for money. That's called having a job. And then some of us will trade our um, money for time. That's called being a boss. And then some of us are going to trade our money for more money. And that's called being an investor.
Hmm.
And I wish I could remember what book that was. That will come to me.
Yeah.
If anybody knows what that book is, leave it in the chat box. But I read it probably about 18 months ago. Number four, this has been a game changer for me, and it's fun to learn how people do this. But think net worth. Cash flow is sexy, but net worth is still wealth. Shift your scoreboard. So one thing that the first thing when it comes to investing in real estate, I think there's possibly a trap when it comes to focusing on cash flow first. I think cash flow is important, but would you believe me if I told you that you can actually have negative cash flow on a real estate investment and still improve your net worth over time?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And
Yep.
I know that's kind of a weird thing because we're in Texas and everybody's, over the last 5 or 10 years, all real estate investments have cash flowed. But like I talk to agents and investors, and you go to Aspen, Colorado, and you buy a condo in Aspen. Those don't cash flow. Those properties don't cash flow, but they improve, and the value of them do appreciate. And people are making building a lot of wealth, not on the cash flow, but on the appreciation of these assets.
Yeah.
Second thing I would want to add is uh, you can't become a millionaire unless you track your net worth. And so I released a video. I'll email a link to this, but it's just a net worth tracker. It's just a tool that you can use. And you'd be surprised how many people don't do this. So everyone, another homework assignment that you have for this week is just shoot me a text and say, I tracked my net worth for the first time since X, or for the first time since ever, or I do this every month or every week or every quarter. Did it go up? Did it go down?
Yeah. One of the things that we use an online tool. It's called, it used to be called Personal Capital. And I think Mint.com had it before, but then Mint either got bought out or went out of business. But it was
Yeah.
called Personal Capital, but now it's called Empower.
Mhm.
And that's how we track all of our investments, our brokerage accounts. You can put your properties in there if you own real estate. And if you've got any,
Empower.
Bobby uses Empower. So if you have gotten a recent appraisal on one of your properties, right, you can kind of plug that in there and then put your mortgage balance on there to kind of see how much equity you have in those. And it's pretty cool to kind of track it that way. I have been checking it a lot more recently with the fluctuations in the market,
Hmm.
but more just looking at it, right? Because at the end of the day, right now, for me at least, it's just a number, and it's cool, right, to see that number grow. But then as we add more and more rental properties and real estate, and we have more active income coming in, then we'll be able to leverage all those things, to do
Yeah.
bigger things. Yeah,
I
cool.
use I use a spreadsheet. I have it all
Yeah,
plugged in. I got the formulas plugged in, and it just manually makes me go in and look at everything. And
cool.
I like doing
Yeah.
it that way.
Ours is it's
So
connected to all the accounts, so it updates automatically.
it's automatic, automatically.
Yeah.
I think Monarch's good. I used to use Mint, but Mint kind of
Mint went out of town. Something happened
Mint
with that.
died.
All right. Next.
Number five, think real estate. Why real estate is the vehicle of choice for generational wealth. One of the best things about real estate, and we've talked about this before, if you put 20% down on an asset and it appreciates by 5%, that's a 25% return on your investment. So understanding that math, that real estate generally does appreciate. Now, it didn't appreciate much in the last 18 months, but it will because it does.
Right.
And so real estate's very, very forgiving in time. So
Yeah.
two,
I think
two,
all of
three
us,
years
I think
ago,
all of us here in this call too, pretty much understand the power of real estate and how people like the normal person or just the average guy, I guess I should say, not normal, but the average person like you and I provides a real vehicle, like a definitive path to achieve true, like real wealth,
yeah,
right? I'm not going to go out and invent something. I'm
yeah,
not a Jeff Bezos or those guys that are creating these amazing products that then become household names. I'm not going to do that,
right,
but I can go out there and work my ass off to acquire properties and then stabilize them and manage them appropriately and build wealth that way. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very good.
Cool.
Think value, opportunities, think deals. Um, I would also add like creativity to
Yeah.
that. Millionaires train their eyes to see what others overlook. So the fact that you bought a property and realized, hey, the land is incredibly valuable, knock the building down, build something new, those
Hmm.
numbers made a lot of sense when other investors are probably thinking, oh, this house needs too much work. Pass, right?
Yep. Exactly. Exactly.
So thinking value, think
Thinking outside the
opportunity.
box. We talked about that when we were talking about analyzing deals. The fact that we only like when we're looking on the MLS, we're only looking at deals, properties that have a 5,000 square foot lot or bigger. Why? Well, maybe we could replat, do something like that, knock the house down, or maybe we can add some square footage and
Hmm.
really, really jack up that ARV. And a lot of investors, they're not looking at it that way. They're looking at it like, I'm just going to fix this 1,000 square foot home here, and now I've got to offer $250,000 off the list price.
Yeah,
Where somebody like us, we come in, we're going to add 600 square feet to this house, and now we only have to offer about 75,000 off the list price, right? Which offer is that homeowner going to take?
right.
Probably going to take our offer. So yeah,
Yeah, that
being
requires
creative.
thinking out, thinking creative, thinking outside of the box. And the more that you hear, how other people are doing deals, the more ideas you'll get. Before before Airbnb really, really took off, one of my good friends bought his primary residence in Nassau Bay with a garage apartment in the back. And this is like in the early days of Airbnb. The income he generated renting out the garage apartment on Airbnb covered his mortgage, which
Yeah.
is just insane, for like a 2,400 square foot four-bedroom house. The garage apartment in the back took care of the
Mm,
entire mortgage.
that's awesome.
So this pretty awesome. Remember this quote: deals are not found, they are created. So going back all the way back to Liv's question earlier, you just got to think of like every every listing, every off-market deal, every wholesale deal, everything that you see, there is a way, there's more than one way to make it a great deal. And you got to start with like what number would this have to be? You know, maybe it's a
Hmm.
three-bed, one bed, one bathroom. We've seen properties where all you got to do is add a bathroom and it just increases the value by 60, $80,000. Just being able to know those numbers, and thinking outside the box.
Yeah.
And then we'll wrap up the day with number seven. You want to read that one to us,
Yeah, so
Albert?
think action, right? So success, love speed, planning is great, but execution wins, right? Is people can get stuck in this analysis paralysis, or they feel like they're taking action by just spending an hour looking at Zillow and HAR, looking
Hmm.
at properties and maybe putting them in their deal analyzer or their spreadsheet or something like that. Or maybe they even walk properties,
Hmm.
but if you aren't putting in offers, you're just spinning your wheels. You
Yeah,
have to put in offers, as many as you can. We talked about it last time. It's a numbers game, right? You're putting in offers, and that's how you're going to get these properties under contract, and that's how you're going to get to the next step. But you have to take action,
yeah.
definitely.
Boom. I would say put this on your calendar, even if it's 30 minutes a day, just look at deals 30 minutes a day. Or if it's, if your goal is like, I need to walk three properties a week or one property a week, just pick a number and just commit to it and execute.
And then the next step, Austin, is I'm going to submit 5 offers a week. That if
Yeah.
you just work five days a week, you take weekends off, which entrepreneurs usually don't ever take weekends off. But if you take weekends off, that's one offer a day.
Yeah.
How hard is that? I mean,
It's possible.
and like you mentioned earlier, you put in offers for numbers that work for you.
Yeah.
Whatever that is, and maybe it's $100,000 off the list price. All right, put in a justifiable offer, make it make
Yeah.
sense. You never know.
Very good. Very good. So any ahas, any takeaways before we wrap up for this day's show? Oh, we got a drawing to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm gonna pick number the winner today is number three. Number three is one, two is Liv. Liv, you win a copy of the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. Liv. So thanks for being on the call. Albert, appreciate you, brother. Anything else? Any final words?
Awesome. No, I mean, I think this is great. I invited a few people and they joined in today as well. Some of them are very experienced. And I just want to encourage people that do join the call, whether they're, well, if they're on it live, it can be a discussion. If you have anything to input, like we welcome that. I think it's really great that we can all learn from each other as well. So if you have experiences or you have something that you want to share, like don't be shy, chime in or send questions in the chat box. I think that's really great.
And
Um,
invite people
and
too.
invite people. Yeah, invite people. And this Zoom link is pretty much the same link now moving
Same link.
forward. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I think I just used an old link earlier, but
Yeah.
yeah, cool.
All right. Well, have a good one, and we'll see you next week. We'll talk more about
Awesome.
sourcing deals. Bye.
Yeah.